You're waiting on me.
There you go.
Okay. Okay, I was reading in one of my devotional books, and I came across this, and this is really just a comment about the idea of spiritual disciplines being identity disciplines. And this is what the quote was. It's from Charles Martin, who is a New York bestseller novelist. In one of his novels, this statement was made: identity does not grow out of action until it has taken root in belonging, and in meaning belonging to God. And my comment to that was, the spiritual disciplines teach us to belong to Him so that who we truly are becomes more and more apparent. That's their purposes, and that's why we're having these discussions with you there.
That was awesome.
So
I love that. And we'll have that in kind of in the show notes, and so that way you can look that up and see it and stuff like that. But that's I think that sets the tone. It sets this kind of this idea of, we're not looking at spiritual disciplines to be another thing that we're trying to earn or get. It's actually just kind of an uncovering of what's already there. And so I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
So last time we talked about fasting, really good conversation. And so this time, this podcast and this kind of we're looking at this idea of simplicity as a spiritual discipline. And I'm going to be honest with you guys. This is probably one that I don't know if I struggle with, or the one I think probably least about. Mm-hmm. And maybe it's just me personally, and kind of like, I was like the dude, like being a poor preacher's kid, you could never have like good clothes in middle school. Like, I mean, like I remember going to like Goodwill, and I mean, I was thrifting before thrifting was cool, right? You just let our family, that's what you had. Right. And then all of a sudden you get into high school, right? And I'm like, oh, I can go to the Buckle and get the new whatever, or this what. And so there was this almost pushback against simplicity because it was forced on me a little bit, right? And so I think, I don't know if I've struggled with it, or I've just kind of ignored simplicity because I think early on in life, it was a thing that I didn't have a choice. We had to live simple.
Right.
And so, but I'm excited for us to have conversations today about this idea of simplicity as a spiritual discipline, as an identity discipline, and all that means.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a one that's overlooked a lot. And it also goes, the discipline of frugality, sometimes that's used as well. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's overlooked a lot.
Why? Why do you think it's overlooked a lot?
Well, if there was a discipline in simplicity, what would it be? And that's a trick question.
Not consuming?
It's a trick question because most people, unless they've really looked at it and taken some time to with it, it's kind of hard to know what the discipline is. And it's different than minimalism is a big deal now, and actually minimalism is a shifting and changing of your outward life, but simplicity starts inward.
Right.
And so what is that discipline?
Well, and so one of the conversations we had last time was talking about fasting as a discipline versus intermittent fasting as a kind of a way of life kind of thing that has become popularized and has some truth in it. So I think that there's probably some simplicity truth in the minimalism movement.
Yes, there is.
And understanding that we probably have more than we need, and it's easy for that to grab a hold of our heart.
Right.
So I bring that up because I don't want, when we compare those two, we're not saying that intermittent fasting is wrong or that minimalism is wrong. Right. It's just that it is an outward thing, whereas the spiritual disciplines, the identity disciplines, are just a very kind of personal and inward thing. Is that a fair way to look at that?
Well, a lot of minimalism is the person wants to get out of the rat race.
Right.
That's a good thing. That's or they want to. They have a value to live in a way that redistributes wealth, or there's just this desire to get back to a life that's easier to manage. And none of those are bad at all.
Yeah. Right. So if you were to, okay, so somebody comes to you like I am right now, and says, so when you talk about simplicity, what do you mean? How do you define it?
Okay, the defining point for me in simplicity is that it is a commitment to live out seeking the kingdom of God first. And his righteousness, and all these other things will be added to you. It's that statement in the Sermon on the Mount is, it's like Jesus is saying, if you'll commit to make top priority the kingdom of God and his righteousness, it comes fully equipped with what you need. And so then there's the discipline. Is to live into being committed to making the kingdom of God preeminent.
Dang. So as we've talked about getting ready for this episode and everything else, Dave and I both kind of thought about, like, you're kind of the one that we want to talk about this the most, because there's an experience in your life that there was kind of this invitation from the Lord. It's crazy, but I'm excited just to hear the story, because I think this what you guys went to and lived in, this idea of simplicity, is something that you guys lived very much so. And so I've heard the story a little bit. We've heard about it, but as we're talking about simplicity, there was a season in life where the Lord asked you to not take a paycheck,
right?
And so, first of all, holy crap.
And second of all, we're not asking anyone out there to do this same thing. No, it's one of those, do not do this unless the Lord clearly leads you in a direction, right?
Absolutely,
Please consult your spiritual mentor before engaging in activity like this.
And so, I think, it's insane, but I want to hear how that's the kind of what that looked like in your life, and then how this plays into this discipline of simplicity.
Okay. First of all, let me just say that if you could spiritually see what happened during that time, is you would notice at the very beginning, God pointed out a door and there were heel marks all the way to the door as he showed me that direction.
Right. You had a skin under your fingernails from just
there are claw marks on the door facing. It was not a choice I really wanted to make, but
so set the stage a little bit.
Okay.
You had younger kids in your house at that time. This was earlier, obviously, in your journey. You were married to Diana. The two of you felt very kind of strongly about this is where the Lord was leading you. That was not something that you just were like, Diana, this is what the Lord has told me. You all?
Right. We had 5 kids at home. Okay. We were trying to own a home, trying to pay for a car, all the things, there was soccer, there was gymnastics, there were medical bills, there were, groceries, on and on, normal American life. And I was the only one employed. Occasionally Diana would do something that there would be some kind of payment for her services. Anyway, we moved here to work for a church, and this was the 5th year in working there, and the church had gotten into a sort of a bad cycle. It was hemorrhaging, and we were losing people. Income was going south, and but unbeknownst to me, I didn't know that there was considerations of letting me go. And so I found out that consideration was being made on a Tuesday, and they let me go on that Saturday. So there was like zero readiness for that. And so I was told on a Saturday, and so the next, that was July 24th of 2004. So the next Sunday, July 25th, I had nowhere to go. And that had never happened to me. And I was 49. And so I'd been reading through the 1-year Bible at that point, and I picked it up that morning because I didn't have anything else to do. And I started reading, and I came across a piece of scripture in 2 Chronicles chapter 16. The famous verse in that chapter is, the Lord's eyes roam to and fro to see who it is that will rely on him. Mm-hmm. And it's a story of King Asa, and he messes up. And God sends a prophet to him, and he says, because you didn't fully rely on me, you will always know war. Or you will always have war. And then when I read that, I don't have a lot of these experiences, but I had a very clear, the Holy Spirit spoke to me and said, if you will fully rely on me, and this is where we're just like, we don't know what's going to happen now. Are we going to be homeless? But anyway, if you'll fully rely on me, you will always know peace. So I closed it. I didn't even finish reading.
No, sir. I'm done. That's enough.
I'm out. And I went to Diana and I said, I think the Lord has said something to me, but I tell you what, would you just seek the Lord and see what he wants us to do? Just continue to, and then on Tuesday, we'll go out for coffee and talk about it. So Tuesday came and we go out, and I said, now, we're sitting at the table, we got our coffee. I said, now tell me, has the Lord said anything? She said, yes. Yeah, he's talked to me. And I said, okay. I said, can you tell me what he said? And she said, sure. She said, and before I tell you, I want you to know I'm all for it. I'm all in. I said, okay, what is it? She said, he told me that if we will fully rely on him, we will know peace. And I almost lost it crying, just like I didn't want to go there, but it was also, this is how great our God is.
Yeah.
This is how great he is. So from that point on, neither Diana nor I was gainfully employed for 7 years. And we trusted him for everything. But I will also add that not a week went by that there wasn't some kind of miraculous care of us. I can give tons of stories about that. And what the neat thing is that as my children were growing up, God became a piece of the fabric of every day. I mean, it was like, if he didn't come through, we're done. So it's like if you're in that situation, if he doesn't come through, we're done. Then you're looking for him every minute, and yet he beautifully cared for us for 7 years. At the end of the 7th year, what happened is that, and this was still sort of in the same ballpark of income, but the Wesley Foundation at Tech approached me and asked me if I would join the staff, and that in and of itself was a miraculous communication from the Lord to say yes, because I didn't know if he wanted me to leave, and so there were certain things that happened that were just absolutely miracles for me to join, but still there it was you raise your support, you raise your income, and I refused to do that. So I trusted the Lord even there. Yeah. I would say since July 25th of 2004, that has been the manner of my life, is that I trust the Lord for what.
So I'm not good at math at all. So is that 24 years? This is 2026.
22 years since 04?
Something like that.
So this commitment can, vote, buy alcohol, cigarettes. It's 22 years ago. That's coming.
Yeah. So okay, now what did I leave out that I need to say?
I mean, like you. First off, like you had me at Chronicles because usually, I mean, just my experience has been, I was reading, I found this, in John or in, and it's, to me, that's a little bit of an easy affirmation, right? I mean, y'all know me, and if I have to default, I'm going to be in John. And so if the Lord speaks to me through John, my wife would sit across and go, okay, I don't know what the Lord is saying to me, but it's got to come out of John for it to be the same thing. In the 1 year Bible, like there's some pieces of that are just so kind of random that it has to be divine kind of speaking.
Yeah. And I was married to a woman that thought this was going to be a great adventure, and I was terrified. And but I mean, over and over and over and over and over, God gave provision. I was doing counseling, and I wouldn't charge. I would have people say, "Well, what do I owe you?" And I would say, "Well, I would ask that you just ask the Lord what He thinks you should do, and you do that." That's what I would say. And I did that once. We were 3 months behind in our house payment. And we'd gotten, I don't know if it was 1 or 2 foreclosure letters. And this woman called and asked to visit with me. I had helped her and her husband in a year or 2 earlier. And I sat down with her, and then her husband was a doctor. And she said, and they were moving, and so she wanted to talk about some things. So she said, "Well, what do I owe you?" And I said, "Well, whatever the Lord puts on your heart." And she said, "Well," she thought for a minute. She said, "We haven't tithed in a while, so I'll just give you my tithe." Now, understand, we had to pay the next week. We had to pay $3,000 to the mortgage company, or we were into foreclosure then. Dang. And that's the check she wrote me. Was $3,000.
Dang. Man. So coming back, like the Lord said, hey, you'll know peace if you do this. But I'm thinking in the midst of living in this, how at times it would be really hard to know peace.
Oh.
I would be freaking out if I'm like, I got to come so how in the midst of this promise of you'll know peace in the midst of circumstances and situations that would cause there not to be peace?
Well, what you have to do is that you have to hang on, and I would use the word cling to the Prince of Peace. So when I would lose my peace, and the work was to go find Him, because that meant I'd lost Him somewhere. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so everything stops. And you go get with Him, and then you don't say yes to anything else until you've got a hold of Him, because he was. It's just like if he doesn't come through, we're done. It's over. We're going to be sleeping in our Suburban. That could be taken away from us too. So
in the midst of this, did you have people that knew this when you thought you were crazy?
Oh yeah, I had one real close friend come to me and say, "I don't respect you anymore for what you're doing to your family." And I had to say, "I understand that, but I don't." And for me, and I said this to him, I don't have a choice if I'm going to follow Him. But it's the discipline is putting the kingdom above all else, above everything and everyone. That's the discipline. It isn't about. It didn't have anything to do with becoming minimalist. It had everything to do with trusting Him for everything. And you come to realize you own nothing. You really own it. It's all His. It's all the bank account that had some money in it. That wasn't my money. That was His. And the house I was living in wasn't my house. It was His. He could use it for whatever He wanted to use it for. So,
because correct me if I'm wrong, but that 633 comes right on the heels of consider the birds of the air and consider the flowers of the field.
Yes. Yeah.
Which are both very. The food and the clothes, like that is it's a very, these physical things, and that's what the all things, seek first the kingdom and all these things will be given to you as well.
Yeah.
It doesn't promise that you'll be given in abundance or it'd be given on your timetable.
No, but the strangest thing would be people would come over. They, I didn't have an office, so folks would come, for counseling or whatever and sit at the kitchen table, or Diana would want to invite a couple over or a family over for a meal, and we'd fix, and it's a strange thing. Time after time after time, as they're leaving, they would stop at the front door and turn and say, there is just so much peace here. And I would break down and cry because I wasn't trying to generate that at all. So,
I love that. And I love this idea that how this discipline of simplicity can lead to peace, an invitation to peace. Because I think a lot of our peace is gone when we're trying to consume and gain. And I don't know if there's a correlation there, but there is this thing of we get the more simplistic life and things are not, it seems like the more chaos and crazy it is.
Yeah.
And it seems like simplicity is a invitation to experiencing peace.
Yeah. Well, Richard Foster says it is a joyful unconcern about possessions.
Say that one more time.
A joyful unconcern about possessions.
That sounds like so much freedom.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
well, you think about just real quick.
Yeah.
We often go to possess things, and the end result is those things possess us.
Yeah.
And so if you can move around that dynamic where there's just this unconcern about possessions, then you free yourself of being possessed by them.
Okay, so obviously we're not asking the people listening to jump into a journey like this.
No. Listen.
No. And so, but I also, I think that this is, I think in the church world, fasting is a term that's out there. Obviously, prayer, worship, solitude, silence, but simplicity is not one that is. I have my own opinions on why not, but it's not one that the institution dives into. So you mentioned Foster. I see you've got that book in front of you. So I would assume that a good place to start would be A Celebration of Discipline. The chapter on simplicity would be a good kind of overview.
Yes.
For that.
Yes.
Yeah. I think of scripturally. I think of the words of Jesus where he says, "Foxes have holes and birds have nests, but the Son of Man doesn't have a place to lay his head." That's kind of the thing that we're looking at, just a stripping away of a lot of the unnecessary.
Yeah.
things.
Now I warn you, this book was published in 1978, so it has a little bit of time. Warp to
Right.
it,
Yeah, it's not going to mention an iPhone. It's not going to mention some of the stuff that we need to,
Right. But it's. If you want to lay a foundation for this discipline, this is a great book. Now, Dallas Willard's book but he didn't call it Simplicity. A Spirit of the Disciplines is the name of the book. Okay. In that book, the title is Frugality.
Yes.
So
there's a chapter in there.
Yeah.
It's just
So, but this is really basic, really good. He does. Richard Foster is a Quaker, and he in this chapter he takes it personal to address greed, and I think that's a word that we avoid talking about in American culture, because American culture is founded upon commercialism. Yeah. And so, consume, and so he takes a swing at that. But and you may like that, you may not like that, but it's really a good foundation for this.
As we're continuing this conversation, I think Foster's Celebration Discipline, it is dated, but it is amazing.
Yes.
It is foundational to kind of, I think, the church's understanding of spiritual identity discipline.
Yes.
Dallas Willard, both Spirit of the Disciplines and The Divine Conspiracy, I think are two good books. The Divine Conspiracy is deep. It is not shallow end stuff. But the reality is, and however long a podcast this is, there's only so much that we can get into, but a little bit of opening of the heart and the mind to the Spirit moving in, like we said jokingly at the start, do not do this without some solid affirmation from people and from the Spirit and in your own spirit to do this. That I did not know you during that season. This was before I knew you, but I feel like that season shaped you very much, the Scott that I know.
Yeah, it had to. I mean, there was no option. And I left out a piece when Diane and I went to have coffee. She said that to me, and I echoed. I said, well, that's what the Lord's saying to me. Our next commitment was to take this to our community.
Okay.
And we offered it to our community. And the question we asked them, are we hearing the Lord rightly?
Yeah.
And so they took that and prayed, and then they came back and sat with us, and to the person, everyone in that community, it wasn't very large. It was about 5-6 people. But to the person, everyone said, the Lord has affirmed that you're hearing him and we're with you. So, and some of them could support us a little bit financially, but there were those that, they were in ministry, and most of the time people in ministry are just barely making it month to month. And so, but their prayers for us, their encouragement for us, oh my gosh, was priceless.
As you're talking, it's easy because what you did there is so outside of my realm of experience that I wanted to hear a little bit about it, just because I can't really imagine that. But like, one of the things as you were talking, it is not like you shut everything down and we're just going to survive. Like, you're having people over, and you already got 5 kids, and you and your wife, that's already a meal for 7. And I mean, I know that groceries weren't as expensive then as they are now, but it's not like you could go out and buy ramen and, feed 10 people for $10.
There was one time we sat down at the table for dinner, and there was nothing. We had nothing. But we all kind of called everybody to the table. We sat down, and I'm on one end of the table, she's on the other, and we're all sitting there. And she says to me, what are we going to do? And I say, I don't know. But the moment I had the word, I don't know, that was out of my mouth, the phone rang. And it was sitting right here, so I just reached over and grabbed it. I said, hello? And so this young lady says, hey, this is so-and-so. And we had helped them through a crisis in their marriage, and they were moving to Dallas. And she said, hey, we're leaving tomorrow. We've been packing stuff and we got everything packed, but we forgot about our freezer. So we have all this frozen food. Could y'all use it?
Wow.
And I went, yeah, I think we could probably use that. And so within an hour, there were 2 ice chests full of frozen food. And we had a feast that night.
Man.
Now do you see what I'm saying? It's just, there was just this constant provision, most of the time out of nowhere. It's like if I'd had 100 years and brainstormed 10 ways this was going to be solved, I would have never come up with this. And just continually God was showing us how creative he is.
Dude, that story's awesome. Like, sitting down at a table knowing there's no food, like there.
Yeah.
That's so good.
But now there were moments where it just was, my word for it was crucifying. And I'll tell you, one of them was, we got to a place, the boys were in gymnastics, and this was when they were young. They're 2.5 years apart. And so we were just not, didn't have the money anymore for them to go. So Mom went in. I couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it. She went into the bedroom and she said, we're going to have to stop. Of course, they started crying, and she loved on them. And then she comes back to the table where I'm sitting, and I've lost it already because I can hear them crying. And sorry. And just a little bit, Jonah, the youngest, comes and he says, Mom, is there enough for one? And he was advocating for his brother to continue. So, man, you're not the same.
Yeah.
I mean, that was so crucifying to me. But now think about the character development of that young man. And he's still that way. he still lives that way. He will sacrifice anything for his brothers and sisters or for those that he loves.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah. Sorry, guys.
No, dude. Yeah. Oh, dang. So if simplicity doesn't look to this extreme, I don't even think it's. I hate to say it's extreme.
It is extreme.
Well, but like
it is
to this degree.
To this degree. Yeah. So what are some other things, ways that maybe people can live into
now,
simplicity?
Foster gives some practical things to do to move yourself towards simplicity. And this is my reinterpretation of them, but it's from him. So, and I've got 7 things. Is that okay to give time to that?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. He says, try to focus on buying for usefulness, not for status. So there's that. And number 2, regularly declutter. Just go through your stuff. And, when he doesn't say it this way, so it's my reinterpretation of him. But as I was thinking about that, did you know that the storage unit industry is a $44 billion business? It made $44 billion in 2025.
And it's not going anywhere.
No,
Every time there's new construction in Lubbock, I bet you that's going to be a storage building.
So what would happen if churches began to encourage the people and its congregations to just declutter regularly declutter once a year, declutter, or twice every 2 years, declutter. What if Number 3, buy when it wears out, not when it's phased out. Now, that's my interpretation, but this is what he's saying. Okay. Avoid debt if possible. There's number 4. Number 5, he talks about that simplicity should affect the way you speak. It should be simple, honest, right, straightforward. So let your yes be yes, let your no be no. Plain
biblical, right?
Plain and simple speech. Yep. Okay. Number 6, don't purchase products that are produced through exploitation. And then number 7, practice planned neglect for anything that tries to distract you from your main goal, which is to seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness. So those are the 7. I think he lists 10 things. So but I taking from that. Just good. But I mean, these ideas are his. I've just put them in different words.
I love it.
So
I love it. Well, we'll have these in the show notes. These kind of 7 that are kind of interpreted, laid out there. But I think our hope and our prayer is that during the season of Lent, and specifically this week, as we're looking at these identity disciplines, spiritualism, that we always kind of go to the Lord and say, Lord, where in my life is there maybe an invitation for simplicity? Where in my life am my possessions possessing me?
Yeah.
And so my prayer is that we would just take some time, some consideration this week, and really just come to the Lord in this idea of, hey, how can I use this discipline of simplicity to remind me that my identity is in you and that I can trust you?
And you use a very critical word that I would emphasize, bold it, underline it, however else you can make it stand out. Invitation. This is not an obligation.
Yeah, that's right.
This is an invitation.
Yeah. So that's kind of our hope and prayer as we've talked about simplicity today. Is there an invitation maybe that the Lord is giving you? And so, man, dude, thank you guys.
Yep,
This is a great conversation.
Thanks for sharing your heart.
Thank you.
Apologies for hogging it today.
No, we wanted you to.
Yeah. I know there are pieces of your life that are so foundational to who you are that it's a sacred.
Yeah.
So thanks for sharing that.
Yeah. Thank you for asking.
Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. Well, we'll see you guys next time. So thanks guys for hanging out and joining in and listening. And we're so thankful for you guys to kind of hopefully grab some things out of this that the Lord is stirring and working in your life as we are learning what it looks like to be a cultivator of the kingdom. Cool.